Order the October 8th meeting of Nelson County Board of Supervisors. If you will, please rise and join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Next, if you will join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, and I guess I probably should have started that moment of silence with just that our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those impacted by the horrific destruction from Hurricane Helene, and I know how we all in this community have such a close tie to that with our history, and so it's even that much more real to us. So thinking of all of those impacted by this and everything they're going through. So, all right, we will start with our public comments. First, we have Stephen Bain. If you could, you have 3 minutes to speak. And are you good for keeping time?
I got it.
All right, please state your name and address for the record.
Steve Bain, 620 Farmhouse Climb, Nelliesford, 22958. Board of Supervisors, this is regarding formal complaints submitted regarding the application, site plan, and review process for Renaissance Ridge. Specifically, this is regarding the following questions and requests submitted without response. What is the regulatory legal status of the application site plan for Renaissance Ridge, MSP 240169? What are the regulatory prerequisites and deadlines for the review to be scheduled again for a future planning commission meeting? What is the regulatory timeline if the site plan with the application is revised? Please provide the status of FEMA case 24030322P in as much detail as possible. We know that FEMA will require an advertising process and period in the event of a revision to the flood hazard map. Please provide and confirm the details of that advertising process. Concerned residents are requesting responses and this information, particularly as time is of the essence.
Next, we have Robert.
Robert Gubish, 334 Rainbow Ridge Road, Palmer. I just yesterday had the pleasure of, on a public forum, conversing with Congressman Good, and he went into great detail as to what's been going on with the money in the federal government in this present administration. And after he explained 3 or 4 or 5 things of where a lot of money goes without most of us knowing it, his closing sentence was, "You can certainly say that the Biden administration is evil." And I thought that was a pretty powerful statement to come from a congressman. There is certainly a battle going on to destroy this country, everything that it stands for, everything that we grew up to believe in. And it's within our government. So I come before you and bring these things up just so, in light of the coming election, no matter what happens, who's ever selected to be put into the White House, it's going to get much worse. That's guaranteed. So I bring this all to the attention of you, that we may be more mindful of what we do with our energies and resources, because we're going to need everything we've got to stick together as a community. And thank you for your service.
Next, we have Eleanor.
Eleanor Amadon, 931 Chanberg Drive, Afton, Virginia. Why do Jesse Rutherford and Jessica Ligon want to replace the Planning Commission's representative from the Board of Supervisors? They gave no logical or plausible explanation during the September 10 Board of Supervisors meeting, only a request that Ernie Reed switch out of his appointed role and vague innuendos about what might happen if he didn't. It seems that the Board of Supervisors has orderly procedures for making appointments for specified periods of time. My understanding from a file that I accessed through the Nelson County website is that appointments to the Planning Commission are made for 4 years with no term limits. Updating the Nelson County Comprehensive Plan and possible changes to zoning ordinances are complicated, interrelated issues. When you have a thoughtful and competent person serving on the Planning Commission, you don't want to arbitrarily switch him out for a less experienced person. I question Jesse Rutherford's judgment in making an unsubstantiated motion based solely on his and Jessica Ligon's misleading and ambiguous rationalizations on a subject not on the meeting's agenda to a board with a bare minimum of a quorum present. Members of the Board of Supervisors should have more important things to do than to waste time playing games like this. I urge Jesse's constituents in the East District to question his judgment as well before re-electing him in 2025 as their representative.
Excuse me. Oh. Is there anyone else who was not signed up to speak, would like to speak? Please state your name and address for the record.
Chuck Amante, 401 River Trail, Shipman, Virginia. Wouldn't say I'd like to speak. I wish your meetings were a little less well attended, actually, but I owe one of the board members an apology. I'd rather be eating worms right now, but I endeavor as best I can to follow our Lord Jesus, whose command is to speak the truth in love. And I spoke the truth, but my motivations may not have been, well, they weren't what they should have been. And I should have given you the chance to have a private conversation first, in the hope things might have turned out differently and actions would have been differently. But neither of us will know the outcome of that conversation because we never had it. Yeah, I used the truth more as a weapon to beat you over the head with. And
Please address the board and not one.
Okay. And so, that said, I am truly sorry I did not give the board member that chance in a private conversation. Things may have turned out differently. They may not have. But like I said, we won't know. And for that, I apologize. If you choose to forgive me for that, because I did possibly cause you undue public embarrassment, to which I now have to share. You have my number, and you can reach me easily. Other than that, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? If not, I will close the public comment section. And before we move on to the consent agenda, I just want to address the minimum quorum that we have again today. But Mr. Rutherford has some family issues that he's taking care of, and I believe Mr. Harvey is ill and unable to attend. So, I will entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented, unless anybody wants to pull anything out separately.
So moved.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. All right, next, that was minutes. What do y'all want to read this proclamation? I'll read it.
Okay.
All right, next we have a proclamation. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, P 2024-05. Whereas the problems of domestic violence are not confined to any group or groups of people, but cross all economic, racial, and societal barriers, and are supported by societal indifference. And whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse, with the impact of this crime being wide-ranging. And whereas no one person, organization, agency, or community can eliminate domestic violence on their own, we must work together to educate our entire population about what can be done to prevent such violence, support victims and survivors and their families, and increase support for agencies providing services to those community members. And whereas the Shelter for Help in Emergency and the Nelson County Victim Witness Program have led the way in the County of Nelson in addressing domestic violence by providing 24-hour hotline services to victims and survivors and their families, offering support and information, and empowering survivors to chart their own course for healing. And whereas the Shelter for Help in Emergency commemorates its 45th year of providing unparalleled services to women, children, and men who have been victimized by domestic violence. And whereas the Nelson County Victim Witness Program currently provides victim advocates and a support group for those seeking relief from domestic violence in Nelson County. Now therefore be it resolved, in recognition of the important work done by the Shelter for Help in Emergency and the Nelson County Victim Witness Program, the Nelson County Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and urge all citizens to actively participate in the elimination of personal and institutional violence against women, children, and men. I will entertain a motion that we approve Proclamation P 2024-05.
I move we approve Proclamation P 2024-05 as read.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Amanda?
Dr. Ligon?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Pond?
Yes. Thank you. And thank you all for your help with this. All right, next we will have presentations. First up, we have VDOT report. I believe we have a guest speaker today.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Jeff Sayer. I'm here representing Mr. Brown. He's out on some R&R this week, so good for him. Just an update on some of the flood damage that we experienced last week with the flood before Helene came in. We have every road that I'm aware of is open. We do have some more repair work to do. We got some cleanup work to do throughout the whole county. It looks like the Father Schuyler area was hit again harder than the rest of Nelson County. So our crews have been working almost sun up, sundown, worked Saturday, trying to get some of the gravel roads replenished with some rock that washed away. And we're continuing to work. We still have, like I said, we have some primary work cleanup there with some debris and some washouts that we're going to address this week and next week. And as of that, that's all I wanted to bring forward today. I didn't know if you all had any concerns that we could address as well.
Anybody?
I know it's in your district, but I drove North Fork and it's in rough shape.
Yeah, we have that scheduled for about 1,500 tons of rock starting on that. So that was one that we actually was aware of, and I think, get me wrong, it's a Mill School Road.
Sings Middle School.
Yes,
Sings-
yeah, that one too. So it looked like the Montebello area took a little bit of damage, and the Skyler area as well with the gravel.
Yeah. Anything?
Yeah, just my thanks to everything that you're doing and, you know, keeping the roads open and, you know, as Mr. Parr said, it's a tough time for a lot of people and I'm just glad that you're, you know, taking care of things for us as best you can.
We were very thankful we wasn't as damaged as Southwest Virginia was.
Yep.
So we're thankful.
And I have to say, after the sun came out and things kind of calmed down for us a little bit, I have never seen, I don't know if you all pulled in crews from other counties or what, but I've never seen so many VDOT trucks going down the road at one time, and it was obvious that you all were working hard to get us back, so,
Yeah, I think we had 18 volunteers from other counties come up to help.
yeah,
Also, so
it was obvious. So, thank you all for everything, and thank you teams for the long hours. I know several VDOT workers personally, and I know they're pulling some long hours. Like in that overtime, I'm sure, but we appreciate the work you all are doing. So, very good. Anything else? Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have PMA Architecture with an update on the Social Services Building schematic design update. Welcome.
As Chair Parr said, we have PMA Architecture here to review our schematic design for the Department of Social Services building. Before they do so, I just want to acknowledge our PSS Building Design Committee. That consisted of Mr. Parr, myself, Ms. Spivey, and also Department of Social Services staff and board members, Brad Burdette, Allison McGarry, Brad Johnson, and Edith Napier. So we've held 5 committee meetings, I think since December of 2023 to present, and I think this group has done a fantastic job, and I hope you will agree once you see the presentation. So just want to acknowledge everyone's hard work and thank everybody for their contributions so far. Okay. And we have Jeff Stodgel and Kara Adams here.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Kara Adams and I'm Jeff Stodgel from PMA. This afternoon we want to present to you the direction that we're developing for the social services building. We're going to go over an early site plan. I think we feel good about the direction that's going in. We'll also look at the emerging building plan, which we've reviewed with the committee, and it meets the needs of the department. And we'll look at the direction of the exterior design and point out that we believe that the building is going to have a much more prominent presence on 29, and it's going to be a very good gateway piece of architecture for the community. Let's move on to the first. I have to. This is looking down on, from above. This is the site plan that the Timmons Group has developed. On the top of the page is where 29 is. On the left-hand side of the page, we have, this is where Main Street comes down, and then the bottom side of the screen is Tanbark. So the parking lot and the building footprint will occupy the entire site, and we think it all fits. The proposed building is going to be much closer to Tanbark instead of where the current restaurant building is, which is really pushed up against the embankment. And in doing that, we'll also build the site up several feet. We're working on the grades right now. That's going to make this social services building much more prominent. I think you'll see that when we come around to the illustrations from the exterior. We're really pleased that we were able to work in an entrance and exit. So we'll have full 24-foot wide, two-way entrances on both sides of the building. At first, we weren't clear we could do that, but at this point, the civil engineers feel that they could do that because Tanbark is a private road instead of part of the VDOT system. So I think that is the preferable way to handle the site. That way, there'll be a lot of free flow around the building. Parking here is sufficient for the staff as well as the visitors. And in general, because we're going to be covering the site with less hard paving than currently exists, we're hoping not to have to do intensive stormwater management, which is another really good thing. That's one of the bonuses that comes along with redeveloping a property as opposed to starting with a greenfield. If we can reduce the runoff, then we soften the impact on the environment, and then you get the advantage of not having to have as much intensive site work. All right, I'm gonna let Kara go over the building plan. Now, just for orientation,
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
So at what point will we know if we need to do stormwater mitigation?
The next step, we go into the full site plan design. I don't want to over-advertise this, but right now we're right on the edge. So if the building got any bigger, or we had more paving, that would flip us over the threshold. So we're trying to work within that right now, but I think that that's as good a picture as I can give you right now until all the work's done. Carrie, you want to go through the building plan?
All right, since the laser doesn't seem to wanna get on the screen, I'm gonna try to make this work.
I'll run the slides.
All right, you guys see okay? I'm too staring at the back of my head. All right, so this is oriented 180 degrees from what you were looking at before. So to reorient you, 29 is gonna be down here. And then you're gonna have Tanbark here, Main Street running along that side, and then, so your two entry points, so you'll have one coming up here and then exit back out into Tanbark over there. Parking here, this is your main entry point, so coming into your public lobby and waiting, your reception area. Around the perimeter, you'll have all of your offices, so in this lighter purple, family services. In the blue, labeled 4 on the other side, you have your benefits, and then your supervisory positions up top. In the core on either side, your supportive services, so everything from copy rooms, foster care supervision, mechanical rooms, etc. Down in that bottom right, that big green blob with the number 6, that's a training and conference room, we worked with the committee to place that on the exterior, giving the option for potential use after hours in other community departments other than just social services. Go to the next one. So this is a view if 29 was at your back, facing the building. This is your front entrance again, so right there to walk into your main lobby and waiting. Covered walkways on either side, so parking in rain and snow and everything else you get up here in Nelson County. Next. This is a view as if you were standing up at, there's a stop sign there at Main Street in 29. So looking down just to kind of give a vantage point of, to Jeff's point of how prominent the building will be when you're up on 29. Currently that El Mariachi kind of sits tucked up in this hillside. Pushing it back will allow it just to become more of a beacon as you're coming down 29. Next. And then lastly, so if you were to come down Main Street and then turn onto Tanbark here, this would be the entry point, so the back of the building, though there's no true back because all 4 sides are very visible, but just another view of what our building will look like.
So in terms of the overall schedule, right now, we're moving very swiftly, and we want to keep that progress going. The end goal is to have a biddable package by March, and this is our schedule. We plan to be back in front of you with what we call a design development presentation, which is a more detailed package. We'll probably have a better answer for, how are we doing on exactly on the stormwater front. So we'll be back in front of you in December before your Christmas break to present the more developed design. At that time, we'll be reviewing an updated cost estimate, and we should know enough at that time to answer, I think, a lot more detailed questions. And then at that time, we'll be asking for you to approve that level of design work so we can move on to prepare the working drawings and the bid package, which our target right now is March 11th, to present that to you to get authorization to go to bidding. So we envision 6 weeks for bidding and 18 months for construction, and that's what the schedule looks like right now. If there's anything else here. This was the budget that we had prepared back in the summer when we were looking at really the two alternatives between the Callow Hill site and the Tanbark site. Nothing's changed here. We believe we're on our budget, and I think that's good news. So today, what we would like to ask is an approval of the schematic design, and then any input that you have, which you want us to carry forward in developing the design further.
Very good. Thank you all for the presentation, and thank you for the work that you all have done with the committee on this to this point. You made a comment about moving fast, but it's been a hurry up and wait situation. So we're way behind schedule of what we had originally planned for this project. In fact, I'll tell Mr. Reed this all the time. My very first board meeting 4.5 years ago, we started talking about this project 4.5 years ago. So it has been something that we've been working towards and we've needed for quite some time. So I also want to thank you all for your direction and assistance. But I think go back to the money shot, please. The design of this building came out of a lot of committee work, a lot of input from the committee, and reviewing local architecture and trying to stay true to Nelson County. And there, you might see there's a little bit of the Nelson Library in this structure, and some other local architecture features. So the committee had a lot of input in this. As you're looking at this, we're looking at the structure itself, not necessarily colors. We're not that deep in the weeds right now as far as colors. We're just looking at the overall structure, and that is what we're hoping to approve today, correct?
Correct.
Although I think it looks great, but
So, I may have the term incorrectly, but for the jail project, there was a value engineering, or I can't remember the exact thing, where there was an evaluation on wants and needs and sort of being efficient with the money we are spending, and we are achieving our needs and not just wants and beauty and everything. Is that built into this, or is that just a...
We have an inherent value approach to the design, and I can tell you that, and I can tell you that we are trying to make sure that we work within this budget that we laid out. There is a term called value engineering, and there are other ways of expressing it. The state uses a process called value engineering. That's a process that if you choose to do it, what what you would do is some point along the process, you bring in another team of people. That would usually include some project management people, some cost estimators, and engineers and architects to review the proposed design, and they would make an evaluation, and they would point out alternatives that could be explored to save money. That costs. We would only be involved in it in terms of presenting the design and making the documents available. I think that we could certainly refer the county administrator to resources to do that. The state uses that process all the time. So that's a decision that the county can make. There will be suggestions that come out of it. You may or may not take the advice on any or all of them. I will represent here that we are not trying to gold plate, or we're not trying to overdo this solution. We have a long history of working in social services projects, and we understand that the mission of the building is to help and assist the community. We want the building to express that and be a welcoming facility. And that would be our guideline. Meet the community needs, meet the staff's needs, and deliver a durable building that will serve the county well. Done well, this can serve 30 years into the future, and that's our objective. So if you want to go the value engineering route, I think we have time for that. We just need to plan it in such a way that really doesn't slow the process down.
I will say that to this point, before any exterior design or any of that work was done, we started working with a floor plan based on the square footage requirements for each office and how much was required, how many offices. Brad and his team came up with a future, what social services is going to look like in, 10, 15, 20 years? I don't remember the number, but you all came back and said, all right, here's what we expect it to be in 5 years, and here's what we expect it to be here. And with that many team members, what's the square footage, which is where their expertise came in, because you need this much square footage for an office and this much for a break room and this, all of that. And so it came up with a square footage number, which I'm just going to say it was 10,000 square feet. It was a little less than that. It was 9 something, but let's just say 10,000. So from there, then the floor plan was designed. From that, we ended up with this. There are things that we have scratched already. We were looking at, if one of those you saw in the bottom right corner was a training room, conference room, and we made sure that was designed so that space could be used by the community. Kind of like we use the meeting room at the library now. Well, we used to, but you can't use it after hours now because people wouldn't take care of the bathrooms. And that's why we can't use that space. But number 6 there in that bottom corner is set up to be a community space. You can block off the rest of the building. You have access to bathrooms and a training room, which will have a glass board, I believe. Not a whiteboard, but something.
Yeah,
There'll be
it's a
computer
smart board.
monitors, smart boards, whatever. So things that the community could take advantage of. One of the things we didn't do was expand that larger to make it a larger meeting room just because of budget constraints. And so those are conversations that have been had with the committee in this process. But that's where the size of the building came from, was staff estimates on needs of the community in the future and putting that growth into the project.
And with that, just another note on that training and conference room, its size was based upon solely social services need for the trainings that they do with their employees. And so the number of employees and staff that social services alone would have in there, and then those 2 doors kind of blocking off for after hours were added as okay, well, you could maybe allow other community programs in there after hours, but the size of the room was based solely upon
On social services, yeah.
needs.
We'll pull that out where the restroom, however it
Yeah,
works.
so this is your training conference room, right? Exterior door here, so a covered walkway under there. This door and this door will be locked after hours, and then this is your restroom, right? So people would come over, use the restroom, but not be getting anywhere back in the Department of Social Services.
Yep.
That's often a really nice feature if you've got a building that's prominently located and we have a room that the community can use. So if we can set that up, I think you'll get more use out of this building.
Yep. Any other questions on what's been done to this point?
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
To Dr. Ligon's point, if the board is interested in the county looking to hire a third-party project management team that would do value engineering on this type of project, we would like to know that as soon as possible so that we can get somebody on board quickly.
But that decision has no bearing on what we're looking to do today, correct?
That is correct,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So, where is the, I don't see the verbiage of what we're looking to,
So you have
here we go, resolution, I got it, yep. All right, so, what we're looking for today is approval of Resolution R 2024-68, approval of the schematic design for Nelson County Social Services Office Building.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt Resolution R 2024-68, Nelson County Board of Supervisors approval of the schematic design for Nelson County Social Services Office Building.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, I just want to reiterate, thank you all so much for the work that has gone into this so far. And next, we look forward to the other decisions that have gone through. I guess since I've been hands-on with this project from the beginning, it's hard to explain it's almost like herding cats in a way of getting all the committee and all of our different ideas and the way you all helped us get to this design was very streamlined and very helpful. So thank you for your work. All right, that being said, we'll have a roll call vote. Amanda?
Dr. Ligon?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all very much for your work. All right. All right, so that's it on presentations. Next, we have new and unfinished business, TJPDC Regional Housing Study and Local Funding Request.
I'm just going to introduce Laura Jean Talon here from TJPDC to talk about the 2019 housing study and then the subsequent 2025 housing study and request for funding for a more specific data set for Nelson County.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Lori Chantilly from TJPDC. So if we want to just jump ahead to the third slide, actually, we can skip over the visuals. So I'm here just to share a little bit about the regional housing study that we are proposing. In 2019, TJPDC conducted a regional housing needs assessment with a group called Partners for Economic Solutions. And they were good consultants and gave us some really great baseline data about all of our region and housing, and hopefully most of you have seen this at this point. So just to kind of reflect on the 2019 study, some of the things that we found specific to Nelson County was that the median household income at the time was $53,000. There were 485 renter households and over 1,000 owner households who were paying more than 30% of their income on housing, which we know is cost burden. About 35% of Nelson residents commuted more than 10 miles to work, and 25% of residents worked within the county. 27% of the rental units in Nelson County were held for occasional use, and 180 Airbnb units were in Wintergreen alone. 11% decline at the time in the median sales price, and 97% of the county was zoned for single-family housing, and about 3% was zoned for multifamily housing. So it's all pretty zoned together. So the reason that we are coming back now, 5 years later, to do a follow-up study is because obviously we have had a pandemic and a ton of changes since then. I mean, even just looking at these numbers, I'm sure you can call to mind a lot of changes that we're probably going to find. And also with the great comprehensive plan that came through in April, we've had some great conversations about using new data to help think about how do we implement the things that were put into the comprehensive plan related to housing. So if we want to jump to the next slide. And regionally, we want to have a really up-to-date picture of all of the housing markets in our region. But this one also is going to break out each locality in a lot more depth than we did before. So we're trying to think about, not only where do our residents live, but what problems are they facing with wages and housing costs? What would it take for people to be able to afford to live and work either within the county or just looking at region-wide as well? Thinking about jobs like teachers and mechanics and CNAs, as well as considering just the general feel of the region and maintaining that as well. Instead of just hiring a consultant to gather the data and give us a report, this plan is very different. In 2019, we spent about $150,000 on that effort, and a small portion of that was from the localities, and a large portion of that was from Virginia Housing. We, again, are going to be primarily funded by Virginia Housing as long as everything goes through with that, but we're working with them, and that's extremely likely. We are also seeking funding from DHCD, the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, to supplement the funding as well. And some localities have already committed funding, and then we're talking to everyone right now, really, about committing funding, and it's based on your yearly budgets, the amount that we're asking. So this study would cost a little bit over $200,000, and what we are asking from Nelson County specifically is about $10,000. So you're spending $10,000 to get an over $200,000 study that will include a lot of hands-on work. The group that we're hoping to partner with is the Virginia Center for Housing Research. They're based at Virginia Tech, and they are phenomenal. I'm happy to connect any of you with their researchers, because it's a great conversation to talk to them and kind of understand how they function. They're really adamant that they want to help localities like ours, and they've worked with lots of different parts of Virginia, covering a lot of the rural areas and understanding the different housing needs of each different rural county. So we feel that they really have an in-depth understanding of places like ours and how to come and talk to us and listen to us and understand the unique goals and the unique needs of each of our counties, and not just kind of come in and say, well, this is how we do a study, and here's a deliverable that we're just going to hand you. So I think I shared the timeline, but if you don't have it, I'm happy to share it with everyone. We have worked out a detailed timeline with the VCHR. Sorry, it's not in the slides. But it's basically, they would spend about 2 years. We would have data within a few months, but they would spend 2 years really working closely with us, from listening sessions to focus groups to training. Staff at TJPDC and all the localities, and even some of our nonprofits, are hoping to have their staff attend these trainings to learn how we can be continually updating the numbers as we go. So we don't just get this study, but each year we have the skills and the tools to update them as we need to. And then the biggest part that is why we're asking for funding from each locality is that there's this specific effort that brings in Housing Forward Virginia, who are phenomenal. Jonathan Knopf, if you're familiar with him, has worked with a ton of counties across Virginia to identify what are your goals, what are your needs based on the data, and what are the dynamics in your county, and what is going to work best to implement the types of things that are in your comprehensive plan already to really strategize. So that's the strategy section. And we're only going to be partnering with localities that contribute funding to do the strategies portion. We will look at the needs assessment, we will collect the data and look at the markets for every single part of our region. But the in-depth strategy development we'll be doing with everyone who contributes funding. We're really hopeful that this can be a great benefit to our region and help advance all the changes that people are working on or the ways of protecting our communities. We think we have some really great partners set up, and I think it's a good opportunity to get a really big effort and a big outcome with a smaller chunk of funding. So, can I answer any questions?
You alluded to a timeline, but you only mentioned the first part, which was a couple months from now.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, yes, sorry. So it's a multi-page document. Can I just give this to you? I'll give you my copy. It breaks it down over the course of the 2 years. So actually the first 6 months are going to involve things like doing that staff training, collecting a ton of the quantitative data, doing listening sessions with staff in particular, as well as other key stakeholders from the region. And the way that they do it is each county at once. So the Nelson County listening sessions will be specific to Nelson County. It wouldn't just be kind of gathering everyone regionally. And then in the next 6 months, they'd be working on the literature review. They would be working on putting together the initial report. So by the end of the first year, you would have a draft, complete report. Focus groups, I'm leaving out other pieces of the market analysis. And then in the second year is when the strategies portion would be done. So all along, Housing Forward Virginia would be with us in the listening sessions, in the trainings, in the focus groups, looking at the data. And as a result of what they're hearing and what they're seeing, they'll put together a package. I think it's 24 strategy suggestions that will be presented to each locality. And then with that, there's a process with them to nail down, okay, which of these seem like what we want, which of these seem feasible in our area, and then how do we go about implementing it in detail. So that's a lot of what the second year looks like. And then by the end, we have a revised, complete report, as well as a consumer version of the report that's kind of easy to read for anybody to kind of take in what we've done.
It's a shame zoning stuff will be done
I
before
know,
then.
I was thinking, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing, and this is why we put together the timeline, is that a lot of the data and outcomes are going to be there by the end of the first year. You don't have to wait 2 full years. It's more, and Jonathan will be with us the whole way, so if there's a need to look at things on a certain timeline, you know, there is room for using the outcomes before that final package is delivered at the very end.
Well, to be helpful with zoning, what would our timeline be?
That is a good question, and I would have to look into that to give you a solid answer.
I mean, the zoning process itself is a couple of years.
Right, we're looking at
Overall.
at least an 18-month process for that
Yeah.
overall.
And we would have some usable data within the first 12 months at least.
Yes, absolutely.
And
I'm sure we could work with Berkeley Group too, to try to tailor, maybe work on sections related to housing around when we might have this data.
yeah,
I feel like they'd work with us on that.
right.
So, thanks for this. I'm familiar with, you know, the fraction of budgets that Nelson County has relative to the rest of the planning district. the amount of funding that we're looking for from Virginia Housing and Housing and Urban Development, is it about half?
Oh, no, they
Or-
will be covering, oh man, I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's far more than half.
Okay,
As long as all the funding comes through, we're in the
Right.
middle of finalizing those applications, but we've been talking with them and it's.
yeah. Do you have a preliminary budget on paper yet?
Yes, we do, and I'm happy to share that with you, Candy.
I'd just be curious to see it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, we can send that information as well as the timeline information to the board,
Great.
probably tomorrow.
Can you also send the 2019 report?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Should I make a motion?
Yeah, do we have any other questions or any other comments from staff? If not,
How much did we give last time? Or did they request funding last time?
the question was, how much did we participate?
In 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head either. But we can certainly look that up and let you know.
And these are funds that would come,
Likely from the non-recurring contingency.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I mean, I think it's a small investment into a big project, that we need the information, especially at this point, so I support it. Any other?
I move we approve Resolution R 2024-69, Nelson County Board of Supervisors, a resolution committing Nelson County's participation and financial contribution to the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission's Regional Housing Needs Assessment and Strategy Guide.
Yeah.
And I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Amanda?
Dr. Liggin?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Look forward to working with you on this. Oh, here, your copy. But if you could send.
We'll make sure, yes.
Very good, thank you. All right. Next up, we have Registrar's Office Proposed Lease Agreement Revision. Candy. Everybody got their hand up.
Jackie and I are gonna probably tag team on this one. She's gonna talk about, her space needs, and then I can review the current, space rent utilities versus the proposed.
Good afternoon. I think Candy has provided you with their space allocation request. Our world in voter registration and elections expands daily. And if you've been in our office lately, you'll see we've got stuff everywhere. And we need more space. Early voting's going on right now. We're seeing, right now, we've had over 1,000 voters as of Monday come through with early voting. Our by-mail numbers are coming in, so it's super busy down there with that. We've also got by-mail going. All of these things, and we have new equipment, all of these things need storage space, we need working space to accomplish our by-mail program as well as our daily work. We need more space.
That it?
I could stand here and talk to you all afternoon about what we need, but
We-
bottom line is we need more space.
We've stumbled over the boxes.
All right, so as you can see on this first slide, this is 571 Front Street. The current space, rent, and utilities are as follows. We're currently renting the upper half of the building, which is approximately 1,925 square feet. We're paying $1,966 a month in rent, paying half of the monthly actual electric, water, and sewer utility costs, which the month of September, these were $142.20. So using that as the basis for the approximate total annual cost, this is $25,298.40, which is an annual cost per square foot of $13.14. Proposed space and rent and utilities are shown here. The rental of the full building of approximately 3,125 square feet would add an additional 1,200 square feet. And the proposed monthly rent is $2,516. This is an increase of $550 per month. Also, we would be responsible for payment of 100% of the actual monthly electric, water, and sewer utility costs. In September, this was $284.40. So the total annual cost would be approximately $33,604.80, which is an additional $8,300 per year. This brings the annual cost per square foot to $10.75, which is a decrease of $2.39 per square foot. This is just a chart to show you the current proposed and the differences there in the annual rent and utilities, and then the cost per square foot of space. So we have provided you with a resolution. This resolution does authorize me to execute a new lease agreement based on these parameters. However, if the board's more comfortable with having the lease drawn up and then considering its execution or not, we can do it that way. We just need to change that piece of language in the last paragraph.
I don't say this to stress anyone out, because I don't intend to move the registrar's office before a presidential election, but have we shopped around?
We shopped around a little bit probably 6 months ago. Looked at a couple of different properties in Livingston, and none of those were suitable for space needs at the time. If something does become available, or we have knowledge of another space that could be a potential possibility, we always have the right to look at other options. And
so that's intended to be written into the lease that we have?
Yes, any lease we have, you're allowed to give, usually it's 60 to 90 days notice from either party to terminate the lease. So that would be part of the lease agreement.
How dry is that downstairs space?
It's dry.
Dry? Because I'm assuming that's gonna be storage.
Storage and workspace.
Right.
Where we can put things together.
When I went down there to tour the space with Jackie and look at everything, there's a decent amount of space downstairs that could be potential storage space for some other county use.
Other needs?
Other needs, yes, depending on any security issues, if there were any to do with that, but we'd have to talk about that.
Yeah, if y'all don't take it, I might rent it myself, so it's a pretty good price per square foot on retail, on a commercial space. I think we need another insurance office in Livingston.
Right across the street.
So, if the board's interested, then, we just need to let, Rutherford Enterprises LLC's attorney know so he can draw up the lease agreement, and then we could go from there, if that's your preference.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I think authorizing Candy to execute the agreement is certainly quick and easy,
Yep, I agree.
and
Any heartburn?
she could do it a lot better than I could.
Yep. All right, well, hearing no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion that we approve Resolution R 2024-70.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve R 2024-70, Nelson County Board of Supervisors, authorization of new lease agreement for the office space of the Registrar and Local Electoral Board at 571 Front Street, Lovingston. Amanda?
Dr. Liggett,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Parr.
Yes. All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
So is the space currently empty, unused? When would this, if we do this, did we say when this would go into effect?
We would try to get it done as immediately.
As soon as possible. Good. All right. All right, next we have 3 o'clock. Sheriff's Department, a couple of items. Candy, if you want to introduce those.
All right, as you mentioned, there are a couple of items to consider from the Sheriff's Department. One is approval of funding for an updated body-worn camera system. And secondly is a request for approval for a full-time local deputy position to be funded utilizing fines and forfeiture funds. I'll turn it over to Sheriff Embry, and I'm happy to chime in or answer any questions that you might have of me during this discussion.
Thank you, Ms. McGarry. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be with you here this afternoon. I'm happy to take up either agenda, whichever you all want to discuss first.
Well, let's go ahead and keep it in order. We'll go with body-worn cameras
Our
first.
current body-worn camera system was purchased, it's approximately 7 years ago, in 2018 under a full grant. Those cameras came, it was 25 cameras which outfitted the Nelson County Sheriff's Office. Longevity of those cameras, existence was approximately 5 years. Move forward, they're about approximately 2 years outdated. Which means we're starting to see technical issues, hardware issues, everything's outdated with them, including the software program. We have had to take multiple cameras out of service because they are just non-functional, and the parts for those cameras, you can't get them anymore. The current system, it was purchased, the name of it is WatchGuard. The exact name of the camera is the Vista. They were purchased several years ago by Motorola. And I have been in multiple conversations with Motorola, and again, they do not make those cameras anymore. We have been fortunate to have technical support through Motorola. Anytime that we have a dilemma downloading, being able to get access to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for their purview to view body camera footage. FOIA, anytime that we have an issue that we have a FOIA request and we need to redact or get that information out, we can always rely on the technical support if we need it. Through my conversations with Motorola, technical support is coming to a hard stop on or about January 1. It's coming up very, very quickly, simply because this product, which is web-based, again, is no longer in existence. Technology has just surpassed where we're at today in 2024 going into 2025. So this is what this leaves this agency. Motorola has been very kind to allow us to demo several of their new products. We have several deputies that are demoing those products now as we speak. These products would be the ones, there should be a quote there in front of you for 25 of that specific product. There's also a second company. I wanted to shop this around to see which company fit our agency. The second company is a company called Axon. Through doing our research, Axon is the country's largest provider of body cam video to major metropolitan police departments as well as local agencies such as ourselves. So Axon, the competitor to Motorola, has also given us the opportunity to utilize their body cameras. So we have two state-of-the-art camera systems. We are currently, they have been deployed. We are utilizing them. And then our agency, we will make, if approved on this funding, we will make an educated decision based on what's best for our agency. Prices are very comparable. Both companies will allow us to, both companies would implement, based on whichever vendor we decide to go with, January 1. I believe there was a down payment initial in this fiscal term prior to January 1, and then this would be a 5-year subscription for both vendors. So both contracts are very comparable. It just comes down to which product works best for Nelson County. And again, I certainly leave any of the finances as far as what the contracts are. Both products are state-of-the-art. I am looking to make a decision if this board deems that we can move forward with this, probably by the 15th of October, within a week. Reason being, whoever we go with, it's going to take 45 to 60 days to implement, which will put us to I don't want to, we're coming up on December 31st. Now, I would really like to have our agency in place so that there's no issues with this technology, so that we can move forward from the depleted cameras that we have now. And I'm happy to answer any questions pertaining to both quotes.
I don't understand the discount summary on the Axon invoice. I mean, it looks like the two systems are both within a few dollars of each other.
That is correct, Mr. Paul.
Okay. What's the discount summary? What are they talking about? Savings of $56,000. Do you know what that's about?
That's just all of the discounts between this is a cloud-based service, as is Motorola, so we're upgrading off of the web-based. These discounts have technology, software, hardware components.
But the total is
The total for 5 years would be on page, I'm on page 8.
yeah. And this is an annual, broken down over 5 years.
Yes, sir.
On
I'm
page
sorry.
9, it shows payment summary.
Yes, I'm sorry. Actually, if you look on the back of page 2. On the back of page 2, it shows December 2024, so that would be this year fiscal, FY25. That would be the down payment. July 2025, beginning FY26, would be the first of 5 payments.
Gotcha.
And then it goes down from 26 to 29. Both of these quotes allow our agency in year 3, as technology again evolves, us to upgrade our systems, which is something that we want to do. We want to stay ahead of the curve.
So other technology utilized by the police department, is that provided by either one of these companies?
So our current, what you see on my person here, this is the new Taser 10. This is an Axon product, yes.
But radios, things like that, that's not Motorola?
Our current radio system is through Motorola. We still have professional business with Motorola and Clear Communications. So if we go with the Motorola product, it would be working with the same system, if you will, that we have our radios through.
But either way you decide to go, the budget item
Almost
is
identical.
identical. Yeah.
I'll just add that in looking the way this is set up, it looks like a lease program, but it's not. We would own the equipment and we would be eligible for the upgrade in the 3-year, I think, time frame it is. So when I first saw it, it kind of struck me that this is a lease program, but it's not that way. It's just how they try to help us defer the costs over time.
Structure it
But
over
we
5
would-
years.
Yes, we would own the equipment.
Okay.
anyone here knows the power of a body cam, it'd be me. I think he should get his new body cameras.
Mr. Reed?
Yep. I'm ready to say yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we approve Resolution R 2024-71.
I'll second.
Let's get a first. You make a motion?
I'll
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Okay, we have a
I'll first
motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Amanda?
Dr. Ligon?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes. Very good. Thank you. All right, next we have local speed enforcement position request.
As far as request number 2, I have made it my utmost priority since taking office January 1 to make sure that our public highways and our communities are as safe as they possibly can be. Through this, I have firmly believed that by a presence and enforcement initiatives, particularly on our 2 major thoroughfares, that being the US 29 corridor and the Route 151 corridor, see the most law enforcement activity due to the amount of traffic that we see in those areas, and we've seen the amount of crashes that have come through that. I'm very proud of the agency that we have been able to put together in the last 10 months, the enforcement data and initiatives that our office has taken. This request comes about primarily early or mid-late summer. If I can take you back to August, just a few short months ago. As you all know, the 29 corridor here in Nelson County, there was quite a bit of publicity. Unfortunately, it was negative simply due to the amount of fatalities that we had here in Nelson County. I believe it was 4 within a 7-day time stretch, all along the 29 corridor. Also, in the month of August, school started back up, and a lot of I've got 2 documents in front of you, at least one I would like you to take a look at. I have spoken to quite a few of our bus drivers that travel Route 151, both on the south of Brents Mountain as well as north of Brents Mountain. We have quite a few loading areas in that area for our school children, loading and unloading in the afternoon area. There's been quite a bit of concern from motorists, school bus drivers, for the passing of these stop school buses in the afternoon. We've also seen a heavy rise in volume of traffic on the 29 corridor at all periods of the day. And again, I go back to the fact that we are very fortunate and blessed to have a fully staffed office, and that our deputies are doing the absolute best they can do. But at the end of the day, the reality of it is they can't be everywhere at one time, particularly at certain time periods that we need them. We've been very fortunate to take an aggressive stance in our school zones and provide the most visibility that we can. What we're starting to see now with school bus traffic again is there's some data there in front of you, and there's some updated data that came in just today. This data is coming from our county public transportation department. Mr. Taylor Ashley has provided that. I don't know if you have that in front of you. Yes. So what we're seeing is highlighted areas that Nelson County school bus drivers are seeing where their buses are being passed, particularly afternoon hours. And if you stop and think about the locations of this would be the Route 20, the heaviest would be the 29 corridor, the 151 corridor, Rockfish Valley Highway, as well as Patrick Henry Highway. The updated version of this shows that here recently, just this past week, that the 9,000 block of Rockfish Valley Highway between Brewery Tree and Aftermarket has seen an increased number as it has gone from a shade of orange, 2 to 3 reported incidents, to 4 or more. This is very concerning for me, and I firmly believe we need to do something about this. What I propose, and again, this proposal came as a result of the fatalities that occurred on this highway, on the 29 corridor. And with the data that's there in front of you, there's supporting data of what our office has been able to do year to date beginning in January. That has to do with traffic initiatives, enforcement actions that's taken, Now, all of that that's been provided to you, that is countywide. That's not just specific to the 29 and 151 corridor. However, a majority of those statistics do in fact come from those two thoroughfares, if you will. What we can do better at and do more, these deputies that have produced, that have initiated this kind of traffic enforcement that you see in front of you since January 1st, they're doing this on a 12-hour shift where they're responding to other calls for service. These calls can be anything that pulls them off of these vital highways where the proponent for injury, accidents, and disasters can obviously occur. Through no fault of their own, if they have to respond somewhere else, they have to respond somewhere else. We do the best that we can. This proposal would be the creation of a new position, which as I stand before you today, I can indicate that this, a locally funded deputy position assigned strictly to traffic enforcement, would be dedicated only to the 29 and 151 corridor, only. Simply because of the amount of traffic that we see in that area. That would be the primary responsibility. That would be during school hours to address the issues that are here in front of you. I firmly believe that there would be enough enforcement, there's enough traffic-driven enforcement, and a need for this that would substantiate a full-time position. I am certainly open to extreme oversight by this board. I am very confident that this position is accurate. The timing is now for this, based on what we've seen, the data that we've seen, the data that's been provided us by the county bus transportation. And again, I would certainly open my office up if approved. This position we would be looking to begin January 1, halfway through the FY25 financial cycle. I am more than happy to provide monthly statistics, if you will, to this board to show the initiatives that this position would be taking. I am more than happy to do that to support the integrity of this request. And on that, I'm happy to answer any and all questions.
I guess initially I'm disappointed that it'll be 29 and 151. We have another 2-lane highway, which is 56, which comes through South District. And there's an incident log of more than 4 incidences in this one section.
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate you pointing that out. What 29 and 151 allows that unit to do is to divert our current deputies working shift. Instead of having them on 29 and 151, they would focus there on James River Road, Tybrook Highway, Crabtree Falls Highway. I want to be as specific as I want to make this as specific as I possibly can. That would allow units working shift to be able to concentrate their efforts in those areas. All of these areas on this note sheet will be addressed. I have to do it within reason as far as what a single deputy can and cannot do if we're put in this position, due to the geography of the county.
Is there gonna be a ticket quota for this person? If they're not adequately doing their job, someone else gets put in there, or
No, ma'am, not from our office. Again, I'm happy to provide numbers and data to this body on a monthly basis, but I'm not putting that kind of, I want to make sure that this position funds itself, if you will,
through ticketing?
through enforcement.
Right, so.
Well, actually, the presence is maybe more significant than the ticketing itself.
You'll have the presence, yes, sir. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm really in favor of this. When we discussed, the speed camera possibilities, by the school areas, we were dealing with a staff, your staff, which was just not up to the task because it wasn't fully staffed at that time, and we were looking at what could we do at that time within the parameters that we had at that time, and that's why I was really in favor of that. Putting financial resources into the department, into staff, into having a physical presence instead of a camera and lights on the on these corridors is, I think, absolutely the best that we could possibly do. And I think that this would be money well spent, and it would, you know, I'm not looking at this to, although the funding mechanism I'm also in favor of, because the recurring costs that come up with the fines and forfeitures is money that can go towards this, and that's money that doesn't, we don't have to worry about in our budget. So that's a really big piece of this as well, and I think that, you know, funding it internally as it will, as we're, you know, is also a really positive aspect to this. So thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you, sir.
The revenues that are listed in that email that's in our packet, are those for one officer? What are those?
That's department-wide.
Department-wide.
That's department-wide. And again, I stress that those numbers they come from officers that are responding to calls and working potentially on their days off on a DMV grant. But for the most part, that's done in a 12-hour day, 12-hour shift, if you will, while responding to other calls.
So you're insinuating it would be higher for that officer specifically?
I am.
So what is your estimate, using the law of averages and what you're seeing, realizing that this deputy would be focusing more on that? Do you have a number? I mean, first of all, how many officers are included in these figures we have here?
27.
Trying to do an average.
That would be approximately, so taking away our administrative staff,
Writing tickets.
12 to 15, if you include school resource officers that come out on the weekends to perform DMV.
All right, so assuming 12, the average revenue, again, just averaging this out, it's about 200,151. Interesting. Divided by 12, that's about a little under 17,000, 16,679 is what we're looking at average right now. You feel that this position would bump that up to averaging around 50 to offset this?
I do.
And you're saying there's not a quota system, so if you feel that this officer is not doing enough tickets to pay for himself, he's going to stay in that position, is what you're saying?
It will be addressed. And again, I am more than happy to present numbers to this board. This is a specialty request that I feel like the community needs. I feel like our highway needs. I feel like this is critical infrastructure. The data that what our office has already done versus what the need is in front of you based on what our boots on the ground, if you will, school bus operators are seeing on a day-in, weekly basis. I am confident that this position will pay for itself and then some. To give you the exact number in front of you, Mr. Chairman, I can't do that.
I mean, the bottom line, like Mr. Reed, the bottom line, like Mr. Reed just referred to, you know, it's about safety and the presence, and knowing that around the next corner there might be somebody. That carries a lot of weight, especially with local drivers. At the same time, this board's invested a lot of money in our sheriff's department in the last 9-10 months.
And for that, I say thank you.
Yes, sir, and we're happy to do it.
This is a good investment, I assure you,
Yeah.
in this board.
I have a question for Candy. So we added extra vehicles to the budget 2 years running, assuming he had an increase in tickets. where are we in that department? Like, have they paid for, we went from 4 to 7 vehicles for 2 years in a row. And we said that the extra ticketing was gonna help pay for that. Have we covered those costs? Now we're gonna add another vehicle, right? No?
No.
Yeah. He has not requested another vehicle at this
Yet,
time.
but it's gonna get more mileage. Yeah?
As I stand here, I give you my word, I have no additional vehicle request until FY '26. We have had 6, thank you for the vehicle, for the current budget that I have. We have purchased 6 vehicles, we are adequate at this particular point, even if this position is granted. The only thing that I have asked is a laptop terminal. In that, we are out. That's $3,500 ask in addition to this.
For the whole thing.
Yes.
So, in terms of the revenue from court fines and forfeitures, I did provide you some additional information. It looks like it's on horizontal page.
Yeah, page 2 of the packet.
Yeah. So we have budgeted $180,000 for this fiscal year for fines and forfeitures. Let's see, year to date, we've taken in $73,178. At the current rate of collection year to date through October, and these revenues do post on the first few days of the month, so it's the prior month's actual revenue, but it's posted to October. This revenue is tracking higher than budgeted. We're right now projecting to bring in about $219,534, which is an overage of $39,534. So if this does come in as projected, it would cover the half a year cost for this position, which is estimated at $38,213, assuming the new person or the person in the new position, utilizes a higher health insurance benefit. The full year cost of this position, also utilizing the highest level of health insurance coverage, would be $76,426, and that's just based on this fiscal year's salary and benefit factors. So whether or not the position individually can pay for itself, maybe, maybe not, but the department as a whole at least can cover the half a year cost from January to June. Does that?
Yeah, I mean, so it looks to me like we're already 40 ahead,
Right.
and that's without
this
adding
position.
this focus position, which is gonna be focusing on,
Correct. And assuming
Enforcement.
all staffing stays the same, there's no, I don't know, he doesn't lose several positions or something that impacts, enforcement and then fines and forfeitures.
I mean, I say the money's there, and the visibility and the enforcement is icing on the cake, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah, the $180,000 that's budgeted should, be considered as already committed, so, there has to be
Yeah.
anything over and above that could go towards this, covering this cost.
We good? Comments from the board?
Can I just say it would bring me joy if it was a Nelson County resident employed for this position?
Yes, ma'am.
Creating jobs for Nelson residents would bring me joy. And also, I know it's hard to police your own people, however, I think the finesse of a local person dealing with local people needs to happen. And it's not there currently, so I'm just putting that out in the ether.
Thank you.
So is this just, we don't have a resolution or anything, it's just a motion?
Correct.
Yeah.
We did not try to provide a resolution.
That's fine. So are we at a point, we ready to take action? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve funding for a full-time local deputy position to be funded utilizing fines and forfeitures for traffic and school maintenance and presence along the 151 and 29 corridors.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Amanda?
Dr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Don't come back too soon now. Thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have proposed Davenport Financial Advisory Agreement Addendum, R 2024-72, and after this, we're going to take a break.
Sounds good. All right, at the board's retreat, we had some presentation by, our financial advisors, Davenport and Company, regarding, development of some financial policies. They have submitted an addendum to their primary contract that, was initiated March 9th of 2021 for the purpose of ongoing debt capacity and affordability analysis. Their addendum would be to assist in the development, review, and presentation of financial policy guidelines, including policy objectives, fund balance, and other areas of county management as requested. They're proposing these services be performed for a not to exceed amount of $31,200, which includes the 4% administrative expense. And I believe the addendum was included in your packet, outlining the scope of work and the not to exceed fee. And this would include multiple meetings with the board to develop these policies and final presentation for approval.
So I've just got a question about it. It was a lot of information that they gave us to take a look at with that.
Yes.
And given the scope that they painted for all that, and given the fact that we've been leaning on them very heavily for guidance leading up to this point, probably speaks in its favor. And I was just wondering what you thought about the possibility of doing this internally instead of with using their services, and if it would be and if you think that it's something that, given the ongoing, the fact that we're a little more familiar with it now, having seen it numerous times, if it's something that might be done perhaps in a simpler capacity internally as opposed to from them. I'm just asking you on the spot because I don't really have a grip on that. We have become dependent on their information, and we've used it, and it's been really beneficial, and I'm glad that we've done all that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, once you have spent enough time with something, you have a feeling like you understand it a lot better and might be able to do it in a different capacity. I'm just curious.
I would say yes, we've definitely gotten more familiar with the debt capacity analysis side of the equation. My first reaction is I don't think our staff has the bandwidth or just capacity to take this on. And by capacity, I just mean the time and the focus it would take to really produce something comparable in product. I also think it's a good idea to have a third-party perspective on our finances, just to have some separation of duties, so to speak, if that makes sense. So that would be my first reaction to that.
That was one of the things I was thinking, separation.
Yeah, I'm not proposing that we consider doing it. I'm just saying that I was wondering what your thoughts were on it.
Right,
Going
and
into it. I
certainly
appreciate
the more we
it.
work with Davenport, the more knowledgeable we become on their processes and how they're presenting the information, those types of things, but, yeah.
And this was something that came out of the retreat that we discussed.
Mhm.
I just don't love the do not exceed 30K situation, like, just give us a number.
Well, I think it's because, they like to do that because they're only gonna bill us for the work that they do,
For
the
what's
hours
needed.
spent, so. Yeah, they don't wanna say, oh, we're gonna charge you 30,000 flat, they just, yeah, wanna charge us for the actual work
What they
that's
do.
done.
And like Mr. Reed said, their services have been very helpful to us as a board, and they have provided quite a bit of information that has led us in making decisions.
So this scope of work here, this is in addition to their previous services for us, or?
Well, so, yes, because we have a master contract with them, and then as we define services that we want them to provide, then they provide us just like a scope of work and cost for that particular scope of work. So it's not like we have a standing, like, retainer fee for them, and then this is on top of that. This is what it would cost for them to do this particular scope of work. Does that help?
I mean, that's kind of Ernie and.
Yeah, I paged through the draft that they had, the outline for what that would look like. It's pretty extensive. And it puts us in a position to have to be really thoughtful about it as well.
Right, right. And I think once these are established, then it would be pretty simple to update on occasion as things changed. But getting them established is quite a bit of work.
Right, so it's more one time.
It's
Right.
more one time, and then.
And give us a template, basically,
Right,
starting point.
right. But some of the analysis that would have to go into, let's say, some of the established thresholds and things that we would be looking at in the policies, those would come from maybe some additional analysis that they have done on our financial health or what have you. So there would be a little bit of work to it occasionally.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I would make a motion to adopt resolution R 2024-72, Nelson County Board of Supervisors approval of the addendum to financial advisory agreement with Davenport Company LLC.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, we will have a roll call vote.
Dr. Ligon?
No.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so that is all of the new and unfinished business. Next up, we'll have reports, appointments, directives, and correspondence after we take a 5-minute